I have a question again. Now that we're kind of on the topic of like dealing with like failure sometimes, and sometimes like with our website, if it doesn't go well, like how do you deal with like a failure? How do you like get yourself back up after a hardship when like anything? It could be like a website, just life in general. How do you do it?
Okay, well, first of all, when it comes to finances, right, business is a zero-sum game. When it comes to finances, you know what it means by zero-sum game? It means that either you win or you lose. It's all a matter of numbers, right? But that's for the people who are actually investing in the project from a financial point of view. So they don't need to gauge anything other than do they make money or do they lose money? Oddly enough, 10 out of every 10 sort of startups, only one will probably make it. And but venture capitalists will chase 10 because typically when one makes it, it pretty much surpasses the money that's lost in the first 9. But in those cases, that's from a financial point of view, and that's the venture capitalist kind of thinking that it's all about the zero-sum game. For you, it's all about experience, right? It's all about experience. There is no such thing for you at this point in your life as failure, as long as you learn from it, right? Then it just becomes an experience. Then it just really becomes the next stepping stone for the business that you are going to do next time around. Oddly enough, I will tell you a very interesting thought process that I believe in. And of course, my mindset is all about the ideas of my mentor, Sidney Scheuer. So I don't want anybody to think for any stretch of the imagination that, I just woke up and started thinking these things on my own. But from pretty much just slightly older than you, I learned about the value of people and the value of ideas and the value of listening from a really wealthy and very, very successful man who also was what we'll call a socially responsible, benevolent capitalist. He started the Committee for an Effective Congress. He was not a socialist, but he was close to a socialist in a lot of people's minds that were dyed-in-the-wool capitalists. Right? It's kind of funny when a guy dies with $1 billion in his bank account to basically say because he tried to give a lot of money away that he'd be a socialist. But he was socially responsible. And that's how I try to pay him homage, because I truly believe that that's important. But Sidney believed this. Sidney believed that the project was only eclipsed by the mind that came up with the idea for the project. And that Sidney would always think that it would be better to invest in you than to actually invest in your project, for the purpose, and the most important reason would be because chances are you're going to fail before you're actually going to succeed. And that you're going to learn, if you're a smart person who will ultimately succeed, you will have learned from every failure. So rather than invest in your project, maybe he would rather invest in you, like he did me, right? He invested in me. And not everything I ever worked on actually turned to gold. None of us are that good. But if you look at the long view of really smart people, you'll understand how they understand that every stumbling block actually the next time around becomes a stepping stone. Every mistake that they made, actually next time, the business is built around that business being not prone to that particular mistake, which will ultimately make your second and third go-arounds more successful than your first. Doesn't mean that you're going to fail the first time around, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's going to not take 10 times for you to succeed. But if you're made from the stuff that I believe you need to be made from, you will complete your perseverance and your skills together at the sort of the altar of success, regardless of how many times it takes.
Thank you so much.
Right? Does that make any sense? Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That makes sense.
Don't ever be afraid to make mistakes. You know, the only thing is that I want you to remember this. So when you're faced with the decision, try to remember these words, that it is perfectly okay to have a lapse of judgment. It's almost expected to have a lapse of judgment. To err is human, right? You've heard all that. But the one thing you cannot do is you can never have a lapse of integrity. There is no such thing as a lapse of integrity. You either have integrity or you don't. So you can make all the mistakes of judgments and errors, and please make as many as you can early in life, because you'll learn from every single one of them. And if you find good teammates, and if you do what I said earlier about being a great communicator and articulator so that people are really interested in you because they know that you're interested in them, if you could do all of that, you'll understand that you will always have a fallback, a net, every time you make a mistake, unless you make a mistake of integrity. If you breach your integrity, everything you worked for will be gone. So lapses of judgment, fine. Errors, easy, no problem. Just try to learn from them. But when you're faced with a decision and integrity becomes part of the decision that you're making, always opt on the side of integrity, because that's how you're made, and there is no such thing as a lapse of integrity. And that's really important when you're building a project. I'm not saying this to be a lecturer. I'm certainly not Socrates here. I'm saying this because it's really, really easy when you start getting pressure from investors, from teammates, from coworkers, from co-founders. You start getting so much pressure that when you see that something is going to fall, a lot of people, because they just don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to sort of just swallow their pride and their ego, they basically do something that would not be the preferred integral thing to do. I understand it, especially when you're young. You want to prove yourself. But by all means, you have to avoid that. And it's not that easy sometimes. And that doesn't mean that you don't have integrity. It only means that if you're thinking about it, you have integrity, but you might actually breach it to make somebody else happy, and don't ever do that.